Today's Ask Me Anything goes out to Nicole, who says, "Hi Robert, I really enjoy watching your videos. I feel like I've learned so much from you." Thank you. I have a question that may seem ridiculous. Probably not as bad as the last one. Would a dog owner be able to train their own dog in schutzhund, IPO? I asked this question in a group forum and was told to seek the help of a pro, or I would more than likely end up bitten, badly attacked. I'd like your input since actually you're a professional and this other person is not. Cool. Well, so training your dog in the sport. Let's say you know IPO, right? I've got a lot of friends who are great IPO trainers. I love IPO. I think it's a fantastic sport. I rely on a lot of friends of mine who are great IPO trainers and schutzhund trainers. They would maybe, because they know the sport, do a lot of the foundational stuff. Right? But since the primary, and you can do the obedience by yourself and the tracking by yourself. Yes, you can do that by yourself. But you're talking about the protection aspect of it. And the protection aspect is one in that we want the dog to bite the bad guy, bite that guy, not me. So we can do little things early on if we know how to develop a bite. Right? But you're going to want somebody who really knows how to develop the bite, because the bite is precise. Whether it's in a ring sport or an IPO, the dog must bite a certain way. It's not just a random bite. It's a bite that is very specific, like that bug. It's very, very specific. And that bite must be channeled and developed properly. And that's where it's going to come in, that you're probably going to want somebody to help you with that, because doing it yourself, unless you've trained countless dogs and you know how to develop that bite, teach a clean out, teach a good solid hold, it's very, very hard to do. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. I've trained a lot of dogs, and I can tell you that that's a tough one to train, right? So that's part one. Part two is that you don't really want the dog always thinking they should be biting you. In other words, you're trying to teach the dog to bite that guy and to move away from you. So a lot of people who teach their own dogs the bite, whether it's on a tug or on a sleeve or on a bite pillow or whatever, the dog starts to become too dialed into you, and the dog will not work independently away from you. And that's a really important part of IPO. And it's something that I faced with Goofy, because he was so focused on obedience that his desire or his stability to go away from me and work away from me was not as strong as it could have been if I should have used more work on him away from me, and that would involve using another person, which I did do, but there was a lot of obedience that came back. So he's a great obedience dog, obviously. But if you want your dog to be really focused on doing the proper sport, the IPO sport, do your tracking, do your obedience yourself, but to develop that bite, to channel that bite, and to perfect that bite, and to be clear that the dog goes over there and bites and still has a relationship where he can be independent of you, working in another place, and still have that connection where he'll still come back to you, because the dog's still going to need to out, come back to you, go back and bite, come back to you. It's this back and forth thing. It's an amazing amount of control over the dog that IPO gives the dog. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun. It's a fantastic sport. I love it. I love IPO, and I love the ring sports. I think they're all great because it teaches the dog that. But to develop the bite and to do it properly, I highly recommend you get a really solid and get a really, really good trainer to work with your dog so they don't screw them up from the beginning. Hi Robert, my roommate's Australian Shepherd Doodle is reactive to dogs. I know corrections are at the first sign of reactivity, but she reacts to the sound of a collar. Should I be correcting for false alarms? I.e., when she hears someone rustle with their keys, she thinks it's an incoming dog's collar. Should I be correcting if she's inside the house, never sees a dog, but hears a dog walking on the street? Thanks in advance. I've learned so much from your videos over the past 6 months. I'm not really 100% sure what you're asking me, because you're saying she's reactive to dogs. I know corrections are at the first sign of reactivity, but she reacts to the sound of a collar. Oh, I see. You're saying that she reacts to the sound of a collar coming on. So, what I would really do, first of all, before you start correcting her, yes, I would absolutely correct for aggression. But you're dealing with a dog that has suspicion issues. So what I would do is get her to not focus on that sound so much. So there's a couple things you can do. You can get her to associate that sound with something positive. For example, the caller's coming, you give her a tap. Hey, 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 come here, come here, come here, come here, and give her some rewards, give her some distractions, get her to engage to you, because the reactivity that she's going to have for dog reactivity or dog aggression is going to be very different when the dog shows up, right? So she's kind of, when she's hearing the sound of the collar or the approach of what she thinks is going to happen, then, and by the way, there's a difference in sound between keys rustling and a collar coming to a dog. They definitely know the difference. Their hearing is much more in tune than what you would think it would be or what I can really explain to you it to be. So you need to get the dog desensitized to that. A couple of things I would do. I would jingle a collar. I would get her so off of that collar sound that she wouldn't even respond to it anymore. I would have her in another room, I'd jiggle the collar. I'd have somebody outside jiggling collars. I'd get that sound to become very transparent to her, get her to really understand that that sound is nothing negative. There's nothing to be afraid of or to worry about with that sound coming, and then get her to understand that the next level where the corrections are going to come in is for her reactivity to the other dog, whatever that might be. And that's going to come through structure and obedience, through teaching the dog what you want her to do, not what you don't want her to do. You can't tell the dog, don't bark, don't do this. You can tell the dog, be quiet, lie down, sit, stay, look at me. Always give positive commands to what you want the dog to do, as opposed to being a naysayer and saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. That'll never really get you anywhere with the dog. So take your time, go slow. Progressive desensitization on the issue that's causing the predictive behavior. So in other words, the sound or the stimulus, we want to call it that. And then get her past that, then work into the corrections for the behaviors, and you'll have a lot easier time training. Got it? My German Shepherd female is very friendly. How can I train her aggressive to strangers? I probably wouldn't hire you to be my business advisor because you're making bad decisions. Why do you want your dog to be aggressive to strangers? That's the first question I must pose. Why would you want your dog to be aggressive to strangers? If you're a business advisor, this would be a very bad business decision, because if a dog is aggressive to strangers and bites the strangers will sue you and take your money, which is bad business. So if you want a dog to protect you, you should get a protection dog. If you have a nice, friendly female German Shepherd, count your blessings, because you have a really nice dog. Right? A really nice dog. You should be so lucky to have a nice dog. And you need to get off of this thing that you need your dog to be aggressive to strangers, because you don't need your dog to be aggressive to strangers. If you're afraid, go buy yourself a gun, depending on where you live. Some states it's legal still to have guns, I hope. And protect yourself and protect your dog. Don't expect your dog to protect you. That's not going to happen. Right? That's stupid. Really stupid. I have a rescue. I really want to seriously get into training and eventually get into behavioral dogs. Do you have any tips on the path I should go? Well, I mean, if you have a rescue, that means you have a dog, and I like to refer to them as dogs, not rescues, because that's what they are. The dogs, they're all the same. And you should just train your dog. Watch my videos, listen to my podcast, follow what I do, and there's other great trainers that you can follow that will give you information on how to better understand behavior. And then what I always suggest to people is to go to a shelter or to a rescue organization and start walking dogs, start working with dogs, start training their dogs, because that will get you into a position to better understand canine behavior. Shelters are one of the best places to learn how to understand dogs, just watching them, watching what they're doing, and then working with them. Shelters are always looking for people to walk dogs or train their dogs or work with their dogs, because that's what those dogs need to get homes. So if you really love dogs, train your own dog first of all, help some friends with their dogs, learn a little bit, learn as you go. You can make small mistakes with dogs and still become a good trainer. There's a lot of people making big mistakes who are big trainers. So I think you'll have a fun time with it. I think it's a great, very noble cause. Good luck. Got a question? Ask me anything.